Mighty Ape is Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore with everything from movies, music, games, toys, books, hobbies and more. Mighty Ape is your one-stop shop for the things that matter most. They constantly have hot deals and exclusive promos. And if you visit their website on the click-through banner on fakechef.net's homepage, then your purchase will help support Good Movie Monday. Mighty Ape, Australia's entertainment and pop culture superstore.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning!
Morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
You mean to wish me a good morning, or do you mean that it is a good morning whether I want it or not?
Please go away. Let me speak for the love of God.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome to Good Movie Monday, the podcast presented by fakeshep.net. My name is Glenn Cochran, your host and Caddyshack fanatic. Here with a hoarse voice. Don't worry, I've not got corona. I have been tested, and we're all clear. That test is not fun, let me tell you. But the sad news for you all this week, for all you Keith fans anyway, all three of you pretentious cine snobs, the man of taste himself had a bit of a mischief this week and isn't able to join us for this episode. So we do wish the old boy well, and we look forward to having him back on the mic next week. Now, I thought long and hard about who we should get to replace him. I considered bringing in a filmmaker, maybe a comedian, maybe even a few of the old Fake Shemp alumni. But instead, I've chosen a guy who Keith and I both love, whose own love of film rivals most. And, well, why not? We call him the bearded bastard, Mr. Fergus Hulbert.
Thanks for having me on, Glenn.
Thanks for being here, mate. This is going to be fun.
Yeah.
Now, Fergus has never been on the mic before, so we will go easy on him.
Much appreciated.
So everybody, thanks for listening. So much fun producing this show for you every week, and we're grateful to all of you who give the support and catch up with us on social media every week. And for all of you newcomers, and we know there are quite a few of you, then you can also engage with us on Facebook and YouTube, even pop up on Instagram from time to time. As well as this weekly show, we also produce exclusive videos which go up twice a week on our YouTube and Facebook pages. And if you like what we do, please share Good Movie Monday with your friends and help us build a bigger and better show. Coming up on today's show, we will be featuring the first part of my interview with director Kimble Rendall. He's the guy behind the cult slasher Cut, starring Molly Ringwald from 2000. And he also made the shark creature feature Bait 3D and most recently Guardians of the Tomb. And of course, our weekly players are back on board for their regular updates. Plus, we're going to enjoy a live chat with Jarret once again. We had fun doing that last week, so we're going to do it all over again. And the bogan in me might even say it's a banger episode, bloody ripper. Fergus, formalities out of the way, what's going on, sir?
Well, not really much, to be honest. I'm very excited, though.
What have you been watching lately?
At the moment, really, I've been noticing there's a lot of review bombing going around. So I've been really careful with what I pick.
Review bombing. Please
Review bombing.
elaborate.
People do not accept that their review is not right.
Yep.
And when that happens, people tend to just review something completely negative. Give it a 0. Give it something so bad. And it's happening too much. And it means that I'm also getting swayed against watching a film or against going into something.
So what this means is that you kind of gravitate in circles that we don't on this show. So you're much more aligned with the user-based polls.
Was.
Okay, were.
Yeah.
We had a discussion recently on the podcast, or it might have even been one of our videos about user polls. I think it was the IMDb Top 200, and they are absolute bullshit.
Oh, I agree.
So what have you got for us there?
Well, funnily enough, I was just browsing down at all the Blu-rays, and I came across a Paul Newman film. I love Paul Newman. Absolutely adore him. Called Slapshot. And I looked at the back, I read the blurb, and it just sounded so good. And I was not disappointed.
Mate, Paul Newman, one, it's Paul Newman. Doesn't really make bad films.
No, he doesn't really.
And two, it's Slapshot. It's an absolute masterpiece.
Well, I've never been into, the sort of sports comedies that come out around that time, but this just blew my mind. It absolutely did.
R-rated sports comedy.
And it was R-rated.
Yeah.
It deserved that rating, that's for sure.
Now, the bad shoddy sequel geek in me loves the fact that there are 2 sequels to Slapshot.
I did not know that.
Yes, I think Slapshot 2, Back on the Ice, I think it's called, and Stephen Baldwin is in it. But the brothers from the first one, they're in the sequels as well.
Is that true?
Yeah, which came 20 years later.
I didn't even realise there were sequels. I've got to check those out.
Yeah. What else you got?
Well, last night I was a little cheeky. decided to go for an easygoing comedy and watch Beer Fest.
Beer Fest. Oh my goodness. The Broken Lizard classic.
I am a fan. I started with Super Troopers,
Yeah.
and I don't know what it is about that style of comedy. It just gets me. Frat boy comedy, stoner
Yep.
comedies, they're just excellent.
Yep. I'm a big
And-
fan of theirs.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You haven't seen the newest Super Troopers, have you?
Yes, I have.
Super Troopers 2?
Mhm.
What's your opinion on that?
Loved it.
Yeah.
It is basically a rehash of the first one,
Oh,
but I think the
absolutely.
comedy in it, the jokes are so good. Like even if they're rehash, I like the fact they know they're rehash. They bring the characters back. You know, like even the guy they pull over on the side of the road,
Yeah,
they
that
bring
was
him back.
excellent.
You know, they understand fully what's going on and they play to it. Like
Yeah.
it's just really funny. What's your favorite Broken Lizard film?
Ooh. Out of the ones I've seen, because I'm sure there are a
Yeah.
few that I haven't seen, it has to be Super Troopers.
Yeah.
It really has to be.
Yeah. Look, most people would agree with you. I like to go for these ones that are sort of the more underrated type of, you know, or misunderstood. So I think when it comes to them, I like Slam and Salmon.
Slam and Salmon.
Slam and Salmon, that's very funny. That's got one of the final performances from Michael Duncan Clark.
Really?
Yes. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
Meat drapes, that's all I have to say, meat drapes. But where it's at for me is actually Club Dread.
I haven't seen that either.
Club
yeah.
Dread. It's the one that most people think is their bad film, but I think a lot of people didn't understand the satire of it because it is a slasher film with comedy elements.
Yes.
And yeah, it just works so well.
Sounds like a scary movie.
It does a bit. It
Yeah.
kind of plays that way, but it's all on like a tropical island, you know.
Oh, excellent. Yeah.
Coconuts everywhere. But that's a good one. The one I don't like of theirs was called Puddle Cruiser, which is the first one they ever made. That's pretty average, but you know, we all sort of have to start somewhere.
Yeah. Well, I think I'm going to have to take the time to go back and watch them all.
So what else you got there?
Another one of the Blu-rays that I just looked at the back and decided to just go for was The Rover.
The Rover.
Feeling it was more appropriate now than ever.
This could be interesting. Okay.
And also, of course, you got to go for your Robert Pattinson Phil before Batman. So I thought I'd give it a shot, and I personally adored it.
Really?
I really did.
No,
No?
not
a fan?
not really. I know that I kind of enjoyed it the first time I watched it, but going back to it, the tropes are so lame and the premise is so crap, and I don't know. I find it a really bloated. Like we do the FR thing around here, where you know we talk about with people that go full retard. You know, FR is the polite way to say it, and I think he goes FR in that film.
He does. Look, I will say, at the start especially, I thought he was taking the piss.
Yep.
I honestly thought he was taking the piss. He did meld into his character a lot more towards the end, which almost is why I forgave it, I guess.
Yep.
You're right. You are right.
You've changed your mind on it.
No. I adore the film. I still think it was perfectly paced. I
Yep.
think it was a great atmosphere.
Yep.
It was really cool setup. It's almost like John Wick, where he loves his car that much.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's a neo-western.
Yeah, absolutely. But I still thought his performance, he gave a lot.
Yep.
He gave a lot to it, but yes.
I can pay that. I think
FR.
texturally and atmospherically, it's a very appealing film. But we must move on because otherwise we could talk about this all day. So a little bit more news, exciting news for Melbourne fans. Once again, apologies for all of you who don't live in Melbourne, but the majority of you do. So we're going to go through this. The Astor is back up and running. Now, the
Hell
Astor is
yeah.
our Australia's oldest single-screen cinema. They do a lot of repertoire screenings, a lot of double features, a lot of classics. So I'm going to go through their July calendar. We're not going to talk about the films. We're just going to name them because as the weeks go on, we will then talk about them. So starting from July 2nd, we've got 2001: A Space Odyssey. That's opening up the calendar. On the 3rd, we've got Dunkirk and Interstellar. On the 4th, we've got Dark Knight Rises. On the 5th, we've got The Wizard of Oz at 3 p.m. And then we've got The Shining at 7 p.m. On the 6th, we've got Batman Begins and The Prestige. On the 9th, we've got Goodfellas. On the 10th, we've got Blade Runner and The Matrix. On the 11th, we've got Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. On the 12th, we've got Star Wars The Force Awakens and Rise of the Skywalker. For some reason, they've cut that middle one out. Can't blame them. Then we've got North by Northwest at 7 p.m. On the 13th, we've got Predator and Fight Club. On the 16th, we've got Joker and Birds of Prey. 17th, we've got Inception. 18th, we've got Inception. 19th, we've got Titanic at 2 p.m. And then the Grand Budapest Hotel and All About Eve. On the 20th, we've got Akira. 23rd, we've got Do the Right Thing and Get Out. 24th, we've got Aliens, 70mm print. And on the 25th, we have Heat.
Is that double Inception feature for the 10th anniversary?
Yes, it is.
Excellent.
Yes, so there's a few screenings around town of that one, I believe, coming up. Roadshow are going to be doing, just because Tenet is coming out as
Teasing
well.
it, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, we will, as I said, revisit each of those individual films as they come along. Roadshow have also announced their opening dates of all their cinemas, which are spread across the coming weeks. So we won't go into those. Needless to say, wherever you are in the world, look up your local cinemas for opening dates. Hit up their websites. We're back in action, and it's bloody exciting. And one more bit of news before we push on. The 93rd Academy Awards have officially been pushed from February 28th until April 25th. The parameters for eligibility have been expanded. Blah, blah, blah. You can hit up Google for all of that information. I'm out of breath. Let's throw to Scarefest.
Live from America's premier horror and paranormal convention, every Friday night, Scarefest Television brings you guests from the horror and paranormal fields, plus featured movie reviews, entertainment features, and short films. Watch us live every week at scarefestradio.com or via Facebook and Twitter by following The Scarefest.
Scarefest Radio, the radio you can see.
So if you dig what I do on this show or on fakeshemp.net, then you can catch me on Scarefest TV every week live on Saturdays at 11 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Times, which is actually Friday night, 9 p.m. American Eastern Standard Time for those of you in the States. This week, I'm going to be looking at Greg McLean's awesome creature feature, Rogue. And speaking of scary things, there's been some more horror news doing the rounds over the past week, and I'm going to pull Jarret back into the show to have him yak about those things with me like we did last week. Jarret, how you going, mate?
Good, man. Yourself? How you doing?
Oh, I've been better.
Yeah. Sounds like it. Sounds like it.
Yeah, voice is barely holding up. Been probed to the, anyway. So, did you hear about Jeepers Creepers?
I did.
Sequel?
I was just completely shocked. I thought that would be the end of the franchise following the third film, and given how long it took for the third film to get legs, and then the controversy after the third film as well. So, but yeah, tell me a little bit more about this proposed Jeepers Creepers 4.
Well, I mean, I guess it's speculation mostly at this point, but it has been Jonathan Breck, the guy that plays the Creeper, that's been doing all the pushing here. But interestingly, you say controversy. Victor Salva's name hasn't been mentioned in any of this so far. So I guess it's pretty smart of them to be keeping him under the radar for the time being.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think the reason this is sort of gaining traction is because the IMDb listing recently changed and a few extra details were added to it.
Right, okay.
I think Jonathan Breck said that Gina Phillips and Ray Wise were both returning.
Really?
Yeah, which I think is cool. Ray Wise was a really good component to part 2.
Absolutely. No, I think it's terrific news. But yeah, it's just that apprehension of knowing whether Victor Salva's involved or not, because at the end of the day, this is his creation. So it would seem odd for him to have done 3 films and then to ice him out for the 4th. So yeah, it sounds like they're keeping the details at a minimum, but it's good to know that these actors are going to come back and potentially reprise their roles from the other movies, despite that sort of wider controversy.
Look, at risk of being cancelled myself, I don't care if he's back on board. Like I would like to see him back on board because, like you said, this is his his vehicle.
This is his vehicle, and look, it's a long time has passed. He's done 3 films. If you don't want to watch it,
but
I completely respect that. But I'm
a long time has passed.
It.
A long time has passed, but so had Gone with the Wind. Long time had passed there as well.
It's true. Yeah, it's true. Who knows what we'll wake up to tomorrow and what might be considered wrong. So
I don't think there's a time limit on anything anymore.
Never.
Anyway, also adding to that, there was Breck also said that the unused script for Cathedral, which was the alternative part 3, has been adapted into an entire season for television.
What?
Yes.
Wow. That's crazy.
I know, that came out of left field.
Yeah, who would have thought? Well, it seems topical though, because there's a few movies that they've been talking about doing TV series of, and I know there's one that's just in the news at the moment, Glenn. Hellraiser.
Yes. Well, this one's interesting too, huh?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a year for Hellraiser news, because earlier in the year we were hearing that HBO was going to develop a Hellraiser series, and now this news.
I mean,
comes out.
And the news is that Clive Barker, obviously the author and originator of the franchise, is suing for declaratory judgment so that he can terminate his 1986 transfer and get the rights back to the entire franchise.
And rightly
This is
so.
interesting because
Yeah.
but the catch here, there's a catch in it though, because if Dimension Extreme can pump out another installment before December 19, 2021, then they retain the rights. And this has been done before. We've been here.
Yeah, I think like twice, maybe three times before. I think it's entirely possible. They could easily make a movie with that time.
The only thing in Clive Barker's favour here is COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. But then again, what qualifies as a film these days? Look at that COVID zombies movie that came out that basically took 60 minutes of, Hell of the Living Dead, and then a few shots that were shot like in containment, and effectively they could probably do the same. They could just cobble together a bit of a compilation of the other movies, and they could have a new picture. Maybe it only has to have 30% new footage to be declared a new film. Not that I'm giving them any idea.
The thing here too is he only wants the rights back. I love that they stipulate the entire franchise. He only wants the rights back to use Pinhead, because I'm guessing he wants to adapt the Scarlet Gospels, which is a Pinhead story.
Yeah.
And he can't do it without the rights. But that would be a glorious film. But I can't see him winning this.
No, it feels like an uphill battle. But then again, look, Dimension and Dimension Extreme are all subsidiaries of Miramax, and given all the trouble that has happened with Miramax over the years, and even the last film got released through Lionsgate sort of discreetly, as if it were not part of that wider sort of Miramax controversy. Who knows? Maybe it is that point in the market where there is a definite weakness. Unlike Friday the 13th,
There is a Weinstein attached regardless of which one it is.
Absolutely, yeah, exactly. Bob or Harvey, doesn't matter. So, maybe it could happen.
Surely Dimension have gotten all they can from the franchise. It'd be in their best interest, maybe even to stay on board and say, Clive, we give you control.
Totally.
But we want to be behind it with you.
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't they do that?
Well, that's what they've done with Carpenter and Joseph Gordon-Green with, the Halloween and the Blumhouse. And that's what they've done with Halloween. Dimension still owns a part of that, and there's still a party to that last Halloween film and this next Halloween film. So it was like an agreement they made, and it was for the benefit of the film. And look how good that turned out when you have like good creative people involved, not just people trying to make just a movie so they can hang on to the rights and maybe get some VOD sales.
Yep. Well, watch this space. And before we move on, I heard this week that Jason Reitman is already working on Ghostbusters 4.
No. Okay, so this has been actually taken out of context. Because because he's working on Afterlife at the moment. He's still in post on Afterlife. He's actually taken that extra time that he would have had, the film coming out in 2 weeks. So he's been able to slow down the whole process, rework elements, spend a bit more time crafting the exact film he wants. But yes, he was sort of taken out of context because he said he was already working on, the next Ghostbusters. But what he really meant was he's just working on this Ghostbusters at the moment. So it's just Afterlife, but he said this is the unique opportunity he's got as a filmmaker that he's never had before. And he knows of no other filmmakers having that opportunity to really refine and shape that film ahead of its theatrical release. So, I mean, that's incredible that, the film we'll see in March is going to be the absolute film he wants to deliver, not something he pushed or rushed to do. So
that's amazing. I still have a funny feeling that trailer was a bit of a red herring. I think we're going to get a very different film to what the trailer lets on.
I agree, because he's been super tight-lipped about it. Like anytime they push him for a little detail, he just nothing.
I mean, do you get the impression that the trailer is like the first 15 minutes of the film?
I think it's a real early opener, because you're going to have all the old cast come back, reprise their roles to an extent. And even if it's a passing of a torch, it doesn't matter. That does feel like it's just the establishing portion of the movie. Yeah.
I agree.
I can't wait.
Well, that's exciting
March
anyway.
Next year, I can't wait.
Woo!
I'm so excited.
Oh, man. Well, look, anyway, dude, thanks for swinging by again. It's great to do this live with you. We should do it more often.
Absolutely. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it.
So we're going to have a listen to what's coming out on physical media this week. Do you want to take it away?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Let's check out what's coming out this week on home entertainment. I'm your host Jarret, and this is PE Class. First up, we've got Mad Men. They've got 3 titles coming out to home ent this week, and they're all DVD. No Blu-ray, no 4K. In fact, there is no 4K this week from any distributor, and there is only one Blu-ray coming out on home entertainment, but more about that later. So first up from Mad Men, we've got The Extraordinary. And it's a French flick with Vincent Cassel. Surprise, surprise, he's in every French film. It's a drama about 2 chaps that run not-for-profit organisations who are currently under heavy scrutiny from the government because they're operating their businesses without certification. Next up is Proxima, which is a multilingual feature about a woman that's balancing motherhood with her career as an astronaut. Then last from Mad Men, we've got Brabham, which is actually a documentary about the forgotten godfather of modern Formula One racing, Jack Brabham. All of those releases, DVD only. Moving on to Roadshow. Roadshow have got 2 releases this week. The first release is The Assistant, which is actually written and directed by an Australian, Kitty Green, a Melbourneite actually. Now, The Assistant premiered at Sundance in January, and I couldn't get a ticket to see it, unfortunately. It follows Jane, who's an assistant to a powerful Hollywood producer, who's decided to make a stand against his abhorrent behaviour, and we can all guess who that producer is modelled upon. Anyway, the next release is the only release this week that's seeing a Blu-ray. It's coming out on DVD and Blu-ray. It's called The Informer, and no, it's not based on the incredible 1992 pop song by Snow. It's a crime thriller set within a maximum security prison. It's been shelved for a few years due to the financial woes of one of the production companies, but it's now seeing a little bit of light, and it's headed straight to disc locally. So that's me for this week with a very meagre offering. But I'll be back next week, hopefully with some better news. Until next time, stay physical.
There's something strange happening over at the old Monsterfest place. Late every Friday night, strange sounds can be heard emanating from their Facebook page. Menacing lights flashing from mysterious posts. You've had a good movie Monday. Are you ready for a Friday fright night? This week, Friday, June 26th at facebook.com/monsterfilmfest, 4 friends take a trip to an isolated cabin in the woods. Unfortunately for them, something in the cabin is waiting.
Nothing's wrong with me! Something's wrong with them, you just don't see it!
Something is watching.
I know what I saw! I'm not crazy!
Something is hiding.
I told you this getaway was a bad idea.
It'll draw you in, hold you down, and pull you apart.
A centipede just got out of my dick, and I'm as far from good as possible.
Join us at 9 p.m. for a very special screening of Daniel Armstrong's Tar Nation. Created in hell, weaned on blood, raised on flesh. Spend a night in Tar Nation. If you dare.
What's up, everybody? It's Guillermo here again from ScreenRealm.com. Let's get straight into some of the news that we've covered in the past week, starting off with the casting of Kristen Stewart as Princess Diana. Yes, quite the project has developed with Chilean director Pablo Larraín, whose films include No, Neruda, and Jackie, the latter of which saw Natalie Portman playing former First Lady Jacqueline Kennedy. Larraín will be directing Stewart in Spencer, a drama that will cover a critical weekend in the life of Princess Diana. The screenplay comes from Oscar-nominated screenwriter Stephen Knight, whose credits include Eastern Promises, Peaky Blinders, and Taboo. Now, the film will not be dealing with a tragic death and will instead take place over 3 days in one of her final Christmas holidays in the House of Windsor in Norfolk, England. It was around that time that Diana decided that her relationship and marriage with Prince Charles was not working and she would need to leave the royal life behind. Will Smith is teaming up with filmmaker Antoine Fuqua, known for Training Day and The Equalizer, for an action thriller based on the true story of a runaway slave. We'll be following enslaved African-American Peter as he escapes a horrifying plantation and attempts to outmaneuver cold-blooded hunters and their bloodhounds and survive treacherous swamps in order to make it to the north, where he ended up joining the Union Army. It's based on a true story of a once slave named Gordon, also known as Whipped Peter, as he became known due to the history-making pictures showing the brutal scars he obtained from almost being killed during his time at a Louisiana plantation. One particular image was published in The Independent and Harper's Weekly in 1863, and that image was seen across the world and is believed to have made a big impact in the abolition movement, helping shine a bigger spotlight on the horrors of slavery in America. Now, this film is said to be more in the vein of Mel Gibson's survival action film Apocalypto than, say, Steve McQueen's 12 Years a Slave. As of now, the plan is to have this production going in early 2021, although both Smith and Fuqua have projects to wrap up first. Elijah Wood will be sitting down with a notorious serial killer in this upcoming crime thriller, No Man of God. That film will find Wood playing real-life FBI analyst Bill Hagmere and will explore the complicated relationship that formed between him and Ted Bundy during the killer's final years on death row. The film, which is to be mostly set in one interrogation room, will be based on the transcripts of conversations between Hagmere and Bundy from 1984 until his execution in 1989. Set to direct the film is Amber Sealey, whose previous works include 2 small budget features. The script will come from C. Robert Chargle, who has long worked with director Scott Derrickson and co-wrote Sinister, Sinister 2, and Doctor Strange. The search is currently underway for who it is that will play Bundy. We had 3 reviews published to Screen Realm in the last week, the first of which is by Glenn and it's for The Five Bloods, the latest Spike Lee film that's now up on Netflix. Glenn was lukewarm on the picture, commending it for its ambitiousness, but saying that it was firmly held back by its overly heavy-handed approach and occasionally clunky filmmaking. In his review, Glenn wrote, "Its punch is softened by an overreaching agenda, and I cannot help but feel that it would be all the more powerful as a straightforward narrative, without the gratuitous use of historical inserts. Regardless, there is an excellent film to be found somewhere amongst the rubble." 3 out of 5 stars. Our writer Hagen Osborne reviewed the new Disney film Artemis Fowl, which is now up on the Disney streaming service Disney+. Some bad news for this one, as you've probably heard. The reviews are pretty bad everywhere for this film, and with good reason. Hagen agreed with the negative opinions out there, giving it 2 out of 5 stars and calling it a Disney failure that thankfully dodged cinemas. So go up and check that review as well. And thirdly, John Noonan reviewed a small dark comedy film called Mope, which is based on a bizarre and very bleak true story. If you don't know this true story, look it up because it's fascinating stuff. 2 guys that wanted to become porn stars and, well, everything went downhill pretty damn quickly and things ended up pretty tragically as well. John had a few issues with the film, but he said that as a editorial debut goes, this is a strong piece of work with an utterly bizarre story at its center. In his review he wrote, "It seems foolhardy to say that you'll have a good time, but Mope will offer you a potent glimpse into a world many are unlikely to have seen before," and he gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Inception will be back on the big screen. Warner Brothers Pictures and Roger Films have announced that they will be re-releasing Christopher Nolan's critically acclaimed box office hit Inception on July 16, 2 weeks before Tenet, Christopher Nolan's next film, hit cinemas on July 30th. That's about it for me, guys. Jump on ScreenRealm.com for the latest trailers, way more news, and all the good stuff. Be sure to also chuck us a follow on social media. I'm out.
Check.
and that song is a bit of a belter. That is Fat Guy in a Swimming Pool by XL Capris. They were a punk band from the 70s and 80s in Australia. They featured future director Kimble Rendall, who also went on to form the legendary Hoodoo Gurus, and subsequently left them to become a music video director, directing some very high-profile music videos indeed. Kimble, in addition to his 3 feature films, which were Cut, Bait 3D, Guardians of the Tomb, he also served as a second unit director on films like Matrix 2 and 3, iRobot, Knowing, Killer Elite, Gods of Egypt, amongst so many more. But the film that is of topic tonight is Cut, and it was much maligned at the time of release. I think largely misunderstood. It's a satirical slasher film. It's turning 20 years old this year. I recently spoke to Kimble about the film and the legacy it's created, so we're going to take a listen to that now. Enjoy. Hey Kimble, it's Glenn. How you going?
Mate, very well, thanks. And you?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good, thanks. Cheers for taking the time to have a yak with me tonight.
That's okay.
So let's just get straight to it. But before I do, I want to confess the fact that I am a bit of an unabashed fan of the film. I love Cut.
Oh, that's great. Thank you.
So if I'm not mistaken, this is the first time that Cut has been released digitally in Australia.
Yeah, no, it definitely is. I think it would have been, when it came out, would have been just say like VHS, I guess.
Yeah, well, I know it's had DVD releases over in the States or in Europe, so it's a bit of an odd thing that it never had a release here.
Yeah, but no, definitely the first time here. And also now it's been remastered and, you know, a new grade on it. And so this is the whiz bang sort of thing, I'd say. Like, it's really cool. I haven't seen it screened, you know, in the cinema yet, so I'm looking forward to seeing it on the big screen with the, you know, the new grade. Because I've worked with a guy, Charlie Ellis, who did the grade. I worked with him in, he worked in Singapore when we did Bait, the shark movie, and he was the grader up there, and he's amazing. So he did a new grade on Cut, so really keen to see it.
Yeah, right. Well, I can't wait to get my hands on a copy too, and I can't wait to attend the screening that's coming up, which I believe you're attending too.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, exactly.
Could you have ever imagined that the film would be getting another theatrical release all these years later?
No, you know, it's funny when Cut came out, it did all right. It sort of did okay here. I mean, it sort of, you know, it was funny because with a lot of Aussie films coming out, you know, they do all right, and Cut came out in the middle of I mean, when it came out, it did okay in comparison, but it wasn't, you know, and sort of critics were having a bit of a crack at it and going, oh, it's just another, you know, sort of rip off of, you know, the Scream movies, which we never intended to be that at all. Like, you know, but we just thought when we were writing, we thought, you know, those movies were out, and we thought we'd just do our own slasher version. There's a great history here, you know, filmmakers that have, you know, done genre films prior. And anyway, in any case, so when it came out, but then it got into a festival in France, and so I was sort of a bit down actually when it came out here. I thought, because you know, the distributors are saying there's not an audience, there's no audience for horror movies in Australia. I go, that's complete rubbish. You know, I think there is an audience. You just have to find it and connect with it. And but they you know, it was a lot easier for them to put out an American Tom Cruise movie with all the you know, all the pre-marketing done for them. And if they had to work and put out, you know, their own stuff, they couldn't do it. So, but anyway, we got into this festival in France, and then it just got this amazing response. You know, I went over to the festival and people loved it, and then it became number 2 in France. It did really well overseas.
Well, that's not too surprising, I suppose, because it does have a real sort of Jello vibe going about it.
Yeah, cool.
Well, it's funny that you said that those sort of Scream slasher films weren't really on your mind at the time when you made it, because I know when I used to watch it, I always thought that you were kind of having a dig at those films. So where was your head at in regards to those films when you were making Cut?
Well, no, you are right. We didn't want to do a direct copy, but we were obviously making references, and we were having, you know, I guess not tongue in cheek. I mean, it sort of was part of the genre, really, you know, to be self-referential a bit, you know, to mention stuff. So, but we just didn't want it. We didn't see it as sort of a direct rip-off of those films. We did see it as our own Aussie slasher movie. And they were sort of comparing, going, "Oh, this is just." You see why they've done that, but they didn't quite get it. And we were making those references throughout. And I'm pleased that most people that liked the film, got it, and that's what they enjoyed as well. So our head was, where was our head at? Our heads were, we loved the genre and the movies, and horror and what man. I come out of being in the Hoodoo Gurus, and Hoodoo Gurus as a band, I was really into popular culture, I guess, and even musically we were doing different. That band was different to what most of the other bands that were around at the time.
Yep.
And we were influenced by B-grade movies and American TV shows and and popular culture, and sort of that was that, and also stuff that connected to an audience. It wasn't like making a film, about something that, all right, so your life's very interesting, but it might not be interesting to an audience. But however you can create a film, that will connect to an audience, that's even better. And that's what we did with the band as well. People came and saw us, and we sold records, and also with the movie, it was, the aim was to connect to an audience as well. It wasn't, and I think that's what I would say to filmmakers is, look, and that's what was great about making. And I, obviously spent my whole career working in like genre films. There is an audience there, and people want to see these films. So, your work will get seen. Ideally,
it's quite amazing that audiences for genre films kind of still get shunned by a lot of the bigger studios, and yet we've got these big things like Comic-Cons and whatnot.
I know, and look, and there's Monster Fest as well. Like, there is a great audience in Australia and around the world, and those Comic-Con, they're huge events, and a lot of the big companies finally got onto it, and they take notice of it, obviously, but it took a long time, and it took the fans to do it. Like the fans go, well, no, we're out here and we love these movies, and so we're going to create our own events. That's what happened with those events. Started off small and just became huge.
Yeah, absolutely. Monster Fest, like you said, is a case in point there. From its humble beginnings, it's built itself right up. So with the film, sort of before it got made, there was no audience, but I believe it was the first movie to come out of the Mushroom stables. Were there any expectations from them being the first one out of the gates, and was it a hard pitch to deliver?
Yeah, it was the first film out. Martin Fabini, who was working for Mushroom, and we were good mates. He and I were talking about making this film, and then we teamed up with Dave Warner, who was he's a musician. He had Dave Warner from the suburbs. He had this song out, Just a Suburban Boy, and a lot of other songs. He was very very well known as well as a musician, and he's a writer as well. So the three of us sort of teamed up. Martin was at Mushroom Pictures, and he's and I obviously was making films, and Dave was writing, and Martin had the sort of thought this film would be would connect, it would be an audience. So it was a great one to start off with Mushroom Pictures, which was good idea, and it was good they're into genre, and also because again, coming from a music company starting to make films, they had a bit of a different edge to them than the traditional film companies who weren't making these films at all.
Yeah, and I guess coming from music, they've got a little bit more guts too.
Yeah, and also commercially, we use the music. Mushroom have been very clever about using their music for the films as well.
And how does somebody like Bill Bennett find themselves on board with a slasher movie?
Well, Bill sort of he'd worked with the company that made it, and he had a connection to filming in South Australia, and he'd filmed down there, and he also had connection with the financing. So he came in from that angle. He helped help the final part of the financing, which is always the most difficult. And he came in. He came in at that point. It was having trouble, like getting the financing a film. Strange enough, you can get a large slab of the money and it was a low budget film. We weren't talking about a lot of money, but getting the early portions of it sometimes is easier, and the last bit's the hard part, and that's when the films fall over. You just can't get that up. So he came on and was very helpful getting the financing, tying it all off.
Well, in terms of the things like financing, how did you entice somebody like Molly Ringwald to come on board?
I know that was one of those things that you sort of, when you're sitting around and you go, wouldn't that be great if Molly would do it? And also with Kylie too. Wouldn't it be great if they did it? And I'd worked with Kylie on a short film, and she was going, she was on it already. And we said, wouldn't it be great if Molly, and so we approached them, and strangely enough, sometimes if you do approach, the stars at the right time, and, if the timing's right, sometimes they do say, they like to get attracted to the whole concept. Oh, it would be great to go to Australia and, and work with us and so on and so forth. And she was a fan of Mushroom. She was a big fan of bands that came out of here too, like Split Ends and all that. And so there was a lot of connections through the music world plus the film world. But, we were a fan of her movies, obviously. And look, Molly was the biggest star in the world at one point. On the cover of Time magazine and so on and so forth. And if you had the opportunity to work with her, and particularly thought she'd be really great for the part, it was sort of written around her in any case. And then we just approached her, and she said, yeah. It was one of those moments that you sort of, it wasn't expected, but she did it. And we became great mates, and we're still good friends. So no, she was really great to work with, very down to earth.
Well, how was that? Of all the people I've had the pleasure of interviewing over the years, I can't think of any more as sincere and forthgiving as Kimble Rendall. And Cut, in my books, is a bona fide classic. If you want to win a copy of it on Blu-ray, then be listening next week for the second part of the interview for a chance to win. A lot more to be covered in that conversation, so something to look forward to.
Now, when we showed Killbox to some people in Arizona one evening, nobody showed up.
Really?
Nobody. Handful of people showed up. And they sat there and watched it, but nobody showed up. And we tried it again the following weekend, and nobody showed up again. This was in Phoenix, I think. And Roger said, well, this film's got everything we need, but nobody's coming in. And he says, let's go screen it again. And we went to the screening room and watched it again. And while we're in the screening room, there's a guy changing light bulbs in the screening room in the dark. And he's there while we're screening the movie. And then the lights come up, and Roger says, well, I don't know what we can do to this to make it different. And can we call it something else? And then the guy that was changing light bulbs turns around and he says, why don't you just call it Shopping Mall? And then Roger looked at me and he said, where half off is just the beginning. And then I said, where shopping costs you an arm and a leg. And he said, go make that poster. So we made the poster. It took me about another 2 weeks to get some artwork done and get new posters. And we cut a new trailer. And we premiered it in Arizona again. I forgot where, but, Tempe or someplace like that, and we packed the house, and everybody enjoyed it and clapped and had a great time.
Right.
And it proved to me that titles mean a lot, and conceptualizing your movie means a lot. Right. If you don't have a good concept that the audience perceives, then you got a dead movie.
And once again, they were the lads from Bonehead Weekly interviewing cult director Jim Wynorski. Hands down, one of the prickliest people I've ever interviewed. That guy what a prick. And if you listen to their full interview, they had a little bit of trouble from him, a little bit of resistance, but they ended up wrangling him in the end and got a really good conversation out of him. Maybe I just rubbed him the wrong way. I don't know. So check out the Bonehead Weekly podcast. It's 90 minutes of fascinating conversation.
Hey guys, it's Adam here from Adam's Just Seen with a review of The Crow. This is my Good Movie Monday recommendation, and I can't recommend this movie any higher. My big, thing with this movie is that it's just so goddamn singular. This is a movie like Blade Runner and Alien. It's incredibly expansive. It lives in your mind. Once you've seen this movie, you cannot unsee it, and it lives with you. And I think the reason for that is, there's lots of reasons about it with this movie, and we could go down any one of those roads. But mainly Alex Proyas's style here. This is a movie that could be easily ridiculous. It's a movie that could be silly, a movie that could be camp, because it's really, really heightened. And he does this knife's edge thing, and throws everything at you as an audience. He wants you to buy into this world, but his style is so impeccable. You buy it, and that's why. So this movie is a gothic revenge romance, and it sticks the landing. It pulls it off, and that is a testament to Proyas. I mean, he is helped enormously here by Brandon Lee's absolutely star-making performance, and obviously the tragedy of him dying on this production imbues this film with like a genuine sense of loss. But he's just surrounded by these amazing character actors, these amazing atmospherics, this kick-ass soundtrack that I almost burnt out of my car CD player years ago, and it just this movie really is pushing boundaries. It genuinely, even almost 25 years later, is genuinely edgy, and especially in the crowded area of comic book adaptations that we've got now. This movie is full of language and darkness and violence, and it's pushing basically everything that a studio film would cut out. There's references to incest and this and that. There's dark little nooks and crannies all over this film that make it indelible and make it long lasting. And those are the things that they iron out with modern movies. So, I wish that we would get more films like this that are playing for keeps, movies that scar, movies that are this dark. So, yeah, look, if you haven't seen it, check it out immediately. It is on Stan at the moment. It has aged definitely in certain ways, but I dig it. I think that its kind of lo-fi stylings have actually helped it to endure, and it looks cool. I really, really love that aesthetic. So yeah, The Crow, check it out. Don't watch any of the sequels. Glenn will fight me on this. He probably loves all the sequels, but the original is still the best. The Crow, one of the best comic book films ever made. On Stan now, 5 stars from me.
Wow, The Crow. I'll tell you what a bona fide classic that is. And actually interesting that Adam would choose that film, because Kimble Rendall, who we just interviewed, actually went on to become the second unit director for Alex Proyas, who made The Crow. So kudos to Adam for tying in this week's review, loosely, I guess, with our feature interview. Well done, son. But let's dive straight into our weekly recommendations. It's that part of the show that I enjoy the most, I think. Actually, before we do, to all of you that are listening, if you take heed in our recommendations, then we want to know about it. So hit us up on Facebook, hit us up on YouTube. Tell us what you're watching, if it's one we've recommended, and we can engage a whole nother conversation there. So anyway, Fergus, this would be your first ever recommendation on a microphone. What do you got for us?
It's going to be an interesting one.
Mm-hmm.
A nice 70-minute film called The Party.
Are we talking Peter Sellers?
No,
Ooh.
recent. It was another one that I just picked up, saw, it intrigued me, and it's a ride. It is a roller coaster ride. It is set in one place, and it has just a multitude of different characters that clash with each other. It's a clash of personalities, and it is just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, right.
And the pacing is fast.
Yeah, it'd want to be at 70-something minutes.
But it makes it go really fast. But I just sat there and I just enjoyed every second of it.
Oh, brilliant. So roughly what's it about?
Basically,
it
is about a party.
Okay.
Just a nice party. They're all drinking wine.
just a nice party.
And that is the premise. There's a lot of, I guess, internal things going on.
So are there like character tensions and things like that happening?
Yeah. Weirdly enough, it starts between just couples.
Yep.
And then it starts escalating, and
Cool.
then eventually everyone gets involved,
Yep.
and all these little secrets pop out, and you slowly get drip-fed this, and it's so juicy.
It sounds a lot like Don's Party, which is an Australian film from the 70s about a backyard barbecue where everyone comes over to have a great time, but it's also happening during a political election, and then political opinions come out and the tensions rise. And I like those kind of films. They're good. If they're done right and written well, they're really, really effective.
Yeah, I honestly believe this one is.
And I think I know the film you mean. I think I've seen the DVD on the shelves, in the stores and stuff. So cool. I'm going to have to look into that one.
Definitely.
So what I've got this week, this one harks back to the beginning of Fake Shemp. So years ago, we used to host screenings. The first one we ever hosted was a film called Some Guy Who Kills People. This is a comedy slasher. It's directed by a guy called Jack Perez. He's a bit of a sequel king. He made Wild Things 2. He made also schlockers like Mega Shark, Giant Octopus, Blast Vegas. So he's a real B-movie kind of guy, but this is easily his best films. And it was actually written by a friend of Fake Shemp, Ryan Levin, who's a really cool Hollywood screenwriter. Anyway, I digress. The film is smart. It's a quirky horror film. It's about a guy played by Kevin Corrigan who's released from a mental institution and becomes an ice cream truck driver. Now, shit gets really serious when he was sent to the mental asylum because a bunch of men tormented him and tortured him pretty much.
Wow.
And sent him crazy and went to the loony bin for a while. But he gets released. He becomes an ice cream truck driver. But then those guys that put him in there start getting killed one by one, getting pecked off. And then it becomes a bit of a film noir detective story. So you got the slash component, which they're grisly murders. Then you got the detective trying to find out who's the culprit. Naturally, he's the prime suspect. And there's every reason to believe he is. And then they throw in red herrings and you have no idea what's going on and who's responsible. And it's a very, very clever twist and turny kind of slasher film. So if you saw a film this year called Butt Boy, which I reviewed on the show a little while ago, it's got a very similar atmosphere to that. That was a really weird film, but highly worth it. And Hollywood titan John Landis, who we talked about last week on the podcast, served as executive producer on this one.
Really?
Albeit in a very tentative kind of credit, but yes, his name is on the poster.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so look, if you're in Australia, it's available for free on Tubi, streaming service.
Oh, good to know.
And if you're in the States, it's on Amazon Prime and Tubi, so definitely one that you should look into. Some Guy Who Kills People. Get on it, people.
Such a good title.
So anyway, as I mentioned earlier in the show, we have a copy of Cut to give away on Blu-ray from Umbrella Entertainment, and this contest will cross over to next week's show as well. So find the post to this show on our Facebook page and YouTube page and share your thoughts on Cut. We want to know what you think of it. It's that easy, and we're going to choose a winner at random to score this little beauty on Blu-ray. So that'll be given away on next week's show. One more thing to report on before we wrap up. When COVID-19 hit, it was right in the middle of the French Film Festival here in Melbourne. Actually, I think it was happening all across Australia at the time. And anyway, they had to postpone. We had just run a few reviews. I'd seen a few films from the program, and it was a really, really solid festival. But now we're really happy to announce that they're back up and running, starting on July 14, which coincidentally is Bastille Day. They're going to be running through till August 5th. So they're back up and running, and it's very exciting. And so all you have to do to check out their full program is go to affrenchfilmfest.org. That's affrenchfilmfest.org and check out the return program.
You don't frighten us, English pig dogs! Go and boil your bottom, sons of a silly person!
So Fergus, my friend, it's the end of the show. You made it, mate.
Excellent. Excellent.
It's a good feeling.
A great feeling, honestly, yeah.
Mate, you did all right.
Thank you very much.
You did all right. It's been bloody awesome to have you here. You're a bloody legend. Thank you for stepping into that seat at the last minute. It's not an easy thing to do, so really, really happy, and I hope you got a kick out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No worries, mate, and hopefully we can get you back on again sometime soon.
I'd love that.
And, of course, thanks to Jarret, Guillermo and Screen Realm, Adam and Adam's Just Seen, cheers to Ben Helwig and the lads from Bonehead Weekly, thanks to Kimble Rendall for taking the time to chat. Come back next week for the second part of that conversation. And for now, thank you all for listening. Here's another song from XL Capri. It's called Death Car. Have a great week, everyone. Good Movie Monday.
It began as a class project
We have to do a graduation film, right? What better project than to finish that film?
to resurrect an old film from oblivion.
That movie was a nightmare.
So what you're saying is there's some sort of a curse on this film?
Now, they've made an unexpected discovery of a mysterious legend.
Creepier than Friday the 13th. More blood and guts than Texas Chainsaw.
More sex than deep throat.
Or are you an idiot?
That should never
Who wants to make a mainstream slasher movie?
see the light of day.
Don't go playing with nightmares.
And action.
I've never said this before, but I've always found you very attractive.
Oh,